Hello, thank you for joining this presentation. My name is Cameron Monaghan, and I'm on CEI's workforce team. Here at CEI, we help businesses navigate anything related to staffing, benefits, policy changes that impact your business and particularly your workforce. And one of those policy changes that we're going to be talking about today is the no tax on tips and overtime rule that went into effect in 2025. We're going to talk about what this actually means, what it looks like, and then how this impacts you as a business owner, and if it will change how you do payroll, or should you really be worried about what's going on with the no tax on tips and overtime. If you have any questions after watching this presentation, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll have my contact information at the end, or to your business advisor for more information. So, starting off, we're just going to talk about what this law actually is and what it does. It's very, very important to know that this is a deduction, not an exemption. And what that means is that it allows employees to deduct up to $25,000 annually in tip income and up to $12,500 annually in overtime income. And deductions are important distinctions because a deduction comes at the end of the year when an employee is filing their taxes. It's not an exemption. That means that it's untaxed during the calendar year. Payroll taxes will still be withheld. All of the regular state and federal taxes are going to be coming out of this income, and this income must still be reported. What it does is it allows an employee at the end of the year to deduct from their return or their filing this amount of income up to these values, but it's all really on the employee to do so, which is very, very key. Also, one thing that's important to know about the overtime is that only the half of the time and a half calculation is deductible. Base hourly wages, even if they are worked beyond 40 hours a week as part of overtime, are not deductible. It is specifically just the half element of time and a half that an employee can deduct. So, the reason why the deduction rather than the exemption is so important is that as a business owner or as somebody who is working payroll, filing payroll, it means that it really doesn't substantially change how you will be interacting with tipped income and with overtime income. Again, you will still withhold all of the same payroll taxes. You will still pay all of the taxes that you need to pay to the federal and state government. And largely, this just puts the ball in the court of the employee at the end of the year to pursue this deduction if they wish. And another important thing to point out is that uh, it's most likely that all of your employees who receive tips or who work overtime will be eligible for this full benefit, this full deduction, because anyone earning up to $150,000 per year can claim the whole amounts. So very many people are going to be interested in doing this come tax season, which is why I think it's important to get out there that this is an opportunity for employees, but also kind of calm down some of the concerns that a business owner might have about how this impacts their business and payroll, because largely, again, the burden is not on the employer here. The burden is on the employee when they're filing their personal taxes at the end of the year to claim this deduction. So, with that being said, it's still good to point out maybe some of the things that an employer can do, some best practices to ensure that the employee has an easier time to claim this, that there's no confusion about how many hours of overtime were worked or what was my tipped income. And even though, again, this largely will not change the way that you're doing payroll or paying taxes, I think that this serves as an opportunity to illustrate the importance of accurately tracking and reporting overtime and tipped income. And just generally really emphasizes the importance of solid record keeping when you're dealing with employees or payroll in any situation. But this adds another element of employees will really care. They'll be hyper focused on, what can they claim? What can they claim as a deduction at the end of the year? So it's really important that you have solid records where you can directly tell an employee, this is how many hours of overtime you worked on your W-2, and this is what you earned in tipped income. And those are the numbers that you can then take and when you file your taxes, claim that deduction. So with that, if you are not already using a payroll provider or a tip tracking point of sale software, if you have tipped employees. Both of those things are very, very important because they reduce the likelihood that there are mistakes, and they also reduce the burden on you as an employer or as a the person who's dealing with payroll to be responsible for keeping track of all this stuff manually. They are oftentimes well worth whatever cost may be associated with going out and getting them, because at the end of the day, they give you peace of mind and they give you access to experts who do this stuff all the time. And it really allows you confidence when at the end of the year you're sending out your W-2, knowing that the overtime figures and the tipped income are going to be accurate. And if there's ever any contention between you or your employee, you can fall back on this payroll provider software and point out exactly how much was withheld, exactly the distribution of hours of overtime worked per pay period. The record keeping that comes along with a payroll service is just incredibly important. And with this no tax on tips policy, it adds to a long list of new policies that I think emphasize the importance of having a payroll provider and having a payroll service. So largely your responsibility as an employee is to continue doing what you're doing while withholding the same taxes, all of that, but maybe put a little bit more effort into accurately tracking and reporting tipped income and the amount of hours of overtime and overtime income for an employee. Make sure it's accurate, because you don't want any contention at the end of the year when somebody goes to file and they have a different number than you. Now, with that being said, if you currently have not been accurately tracking overtime, and maybe you have just kind of been averaging it out per pay period, sending some here, sending some there, right? But you're getting a broad idea of how much employees are working overtime, but it's not accurately tracked. Luckily for you, in 2025, there is a safe harbor reporting rule, which will allow you to average the amount of overtime hours and wages for the second half of 2025. But it's very important to know that in 2026, that is going away. It's only for this first year of no tax on tips and overtime. In the future, you must precisely separate overtime wages and hours on your employee's W-2, and those numbers must be accurate so that they can go ahead and claim this deduction accurately and confidently, and there's no room for debate. So if again you are not currently accurately tracking these things, if you're not using a payroll service provider, now is the time to do that. And it's really good to get ahead of it, even if you may be eligible for this overtime safe harbor rule to average it out for the first year. That is going away. And you will definitely need strong record keeping in the future with tipped employees and with people who are regularly working overtime. So with that being said, the main takeaway here is do not panic. This will not substantially change how you deal with payroll or taxes. You will still withhold all the taxes that you always have been from people's income. You will still be paying these taxes. It's really not going to fundamentally or substantially change how you are interacting with processing payroll. If you have any more questions about specific situations that you're in, or just generally any more information that you want from about this topic, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is on this slide. I'd be happy to talk through anything with you. Or you can contact your CEI business advisor, and they will be more than happy to provide any additional information or connect you with resources that may be able to assist in, developing better record keeping processes if that's what you need. So thank you very much for listening to this, and have a great day. Bye.